Okay, we're recording. Hi, my name's Kiwi Lanier. I'm the education outreach coordinator and marketing coordinator for Sidewalk Film Festival. I really need to shorten that or something because that is a lot of words. Welcome. Thank you to all of you for having watched Jockey with us. We have a very special Q&A with some familiar faces and some not so familiar faces from the film. So I'm going to call on them to introduce themselves. So Clint, why don't you go first?
I'm Clint Bentley, and I'm the director and co-writer of Jockey.
All right. How about Greg next?
Hey everybody, I'm Greg, co-writer and producer.
All right. And Nancy, you're up.
I am Nancy Schaefer, and I only have one title, which is producer.
And last but not least, Clifton, you're up.
Hi, my name's Clifton Collins Jr., and I play Jackson Silva.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much.
And I'm an EP.
Yes.
And he's an EP.
Yes.
And some other things, I think.
He was also hair and makeup.
Awesome. Multi-hyphenate talents here.
We all were, for that matter. All of us.
Yeah, I think that is sort of the nature of independent film, and something I love about it is, everybody kind of jumps in everywhere where help is needed, and I think that collaborative spirit is something good to take into 2021. So I guess I'm going to start with you, Clint. I'm very curious about how this project kind of came to be, or sort of where the idea came from.
Yeah. Well, my dad was a jockey, and so I grew up in the world of horse racing. So my earliest memories are being behind the barns and being by the starting gates and things like that. And as is normal, like as a kid, it doesn't seem that strange to you. But then as I got a little older, I realized kind of what a strange world it was. And then when I became a filmmaker, I realized that there was just some magic to the world of horse racing and to the lives that jockeys lead that I hadn't seen in movies before. As many movies as there have been about horse racing, it didn't feel like it had really come across. And I just really wanted to portray that lifestyle for people, because it is a fading lifestyle as well. And then Greg and I, we became filmmakers, and we were trying to figure out what to do after our first movie, Trans Pecos. And so Greg and I went out to the tracks and figured out a way to bring it to life.
Awesome. Greg, was this sort of new territory for you? I mean, Clint obviously sort of had the life experience to back some of this up. Tell me a little bit about your experience sort of coming on board.
Yeah, we made a proof of concept short film, just as a quick aside, to kind of get into this world of horse racing, and they needed an extra to be a jockey walking through the background. And I tried to put on the jockey pants and couldn't even get them, over my calf, and I was, quickly replaced. So, I'm not the child of a jockey. But when Clint first brought me to a track, we typically embed into the worlds of the stories we write. So we embedded for years within Border Patrol, and it was the same with Jockey, and came to this first track, and we slept in a tack room with all this, horse racing equipment, and a coffee maker that had some strange tar-like substance in it. I have no idea what's actually in there. But when we woke up and the sun was rising and the prayers were being called in English and Spanish and over the loudspeaker, and we walked out to the rails as the track was coming to life, and outriders were on the rails talking shit to the jockeys, going back and forth, and there was this sort of majesty. It was pure, and immediately kind of knew that we had to make a film about this world. He was right.
Awesome. Yeah, I did not know anything about horse racing going into this, so it was super eye-opening for me, because I mean, Clint, your point, it really resonates, because a lot of horse movies that I've seen, it's all about the trainer and or the horse, and the jockey is sort of seen as a very peripheral character. And that always, I mean, I didn't really notice that until I saw this movie, and then I was like, wow, that how did I never notice that? Like, that's so odd. So I think you did an excellent job of sort of bringing that to the forefront.
Thank you.
Clifton, I'm really curious about your involvement in this film because, I mean, you know, had you had any experience with horses, or like was this, you know, new territory for you as well?
I've had quite a bit of experience with horses. Westworld did a lot of work with rodeo horses, but in regards to thoroughbreds and track racing, you know, my father was a big. He liked to gamble on the horses.
Oh.
Yeah, so as a kid, I would go with him on our weekends that we had together. Those the times that he'd actually show up to pick us up. He would take us to the horse track, and he would teach me how to bet on the horses. I was like 9.
You know, normal father son activity.
Yeah. I couldn't drink, but he could drink. But I was, it was interesting.
And Clifton, just to jump in there a little bit, when we brought the script to him, we wrote this role for Clifton after having worked with him on Trans Pecos, and just feeling like he could do something really magical with this. Do something that he could disappear into this world, but also really stand out in his performance, which I think we can all agree that he does. But Clifton, you know, not knowing much about jockeys when we kind of came to him, other than kind of seeing it from the sidelines, jumped in headfirst, and he takes his research so seriously, and knew more about it than any of us by the end of it.
Yeah, that really stuck out to me when I was watching the film. I mean, it really I did not feel like I was watching an actor. Like, I really felt like I was watching, like I was an observer of this real life experience. And I feel like, and I'm not just saying that because you guys are doing us a favor by doing this Q&A, I promise. I really felt like I was a fly on the wall, like sort of watching this person come to terms with, you know, their sort of last shot sort of slipping away. And I thought your performance was astounding. Like, I really thought it was one of the best performances I've ever seen.
Wow, I don't even know what to say. Thank you.
You're welcome. But I'm curious about, for any of you really, was there anything that was unexpectedly like difficult about making this film? Because I mean, at times it was difficult for me to watch because like of how much pain this character was in. So I'm curious if that sort of translated in the production of it as well.
Nancy, why don't you take this one?
I was gonna say, Nancy knows the difficulty.
I was like, are we going to our personal lives difficult? Because that is one thing. Or are we going to talk about actually physically making the movie? What was really interesting about this project for us was that we went to this racetrack and we had to, just like Greg was talking about, embed ourselves in a community, because if we needed something or we needed help, we had to know everyone on the track so that we could make that happen. So what was great about the project was really getting involved in this behind the scenes world of horse racing. And I'll tell you, the biggest unknown in the movie was horses themselves. So they were a lot to deal with, horses.
Yeah.
You might have heard that horses were difficult to, somebody might have said this at some point.
Yeah.
But
horses, jockeys, horses. I go hand in actors, and they all go hand in hand. We're all just wild little beasts.
We really were thoughtful about that. Of just we cared a lot about our footprint, because this was a live working track that we took, and so we were intentionally a small crew and a small cast that really tried to weave our project into their world and not interrupt it, not endanger it, and we were really embraced by the community from the top down, from the grooms and the trainers to the jockeys to the general management. It was really extraordinary, the access that we had to this place. We wouldn't have been able to pull a movie off that had this kind of scale with the nature of our film without their full support. It was really pretty extraordinary, and also challenging because they have a day job, as Nancy mentioned, that we're needing to then, you know, as soon as they finish workouts, we're needing these jockeys to then act in our scenes, and so it was constantly a tug of war.
Yeah, any project is any independent film, and especially one we didn't have a very big crew at all. Anyone is difficult for us making the movie, but I really, Clifton, I'd be curious to hear. I really felt for the actors, both the first time actors who were from the track, who were leaving their day job and having to figure out like, how can I fit this in a few hours before I go home and remember my lines and all of that. And they did beautifully, but they're working around their lives. And then of course you always keep them longer than they would like to be kept on a film set. But then with our leads, with Clifton and Molly and Moises, we're putting them in this crazy real world where horses are walking around and people are eating behind them and things like that, and asking them to do these really emotional things. I don't know, Clifton, if you wanted to say anything about that.
It was just, speaking to the scale of the film, and being a huge fan of indie filmmaking and the collaboration, as both Greg and Clint can testify, I was a bit afraid working on a live track with half the budget of what we had on Transpecos. I'm like, wait, we got less money? And we're doing something bigger? How does that one work? I worked with horses, and we got jockeys in a live track and a skeleton crew of 10. It's like, we're going to go to the moon with 10 people? It's like, yes, we are. And we did. So it was scary, but, letting go and believing, in the family that I was there with, Nancy and Greg and Clint and my crew and stuff, was that you just got to let go and go there. And I was there, I think I was there pretty early, huh? You guys got there a couple days before me.
Yeah, you were there a couple weeks before, and then the last person to wrap out. We all kind of, Nancy's joked about this a few times, but we all kind of like felt part of the family there. And I don't think any of us were really ready to leave when we finished shooting.
How long was shooting? I mean, it feels like, based on the film, it feels like you were there for almost an entire lifetime, but I'm sure that
you were.
It's not true.
Yeah, we were 20 days of photography, but we did a few weeks of prep ahead of time, and to kind of, we had the script that was as Greg mentioned a minute ago. You go in with a script, and we always kind of go in with a script as a blueprint, but then you find amazing people on the track that you want to put into the movie, and we rewrote roles for them or wrote entirely new roles for them. We changed locations. We were constantly rewriting to kind of adapt to the world that was there in front of us.
Yeah, I mean, that it really feels, the whole film on like every level just feels like a deep dive in that way. So I'm very impressed with what you're able to pull off in 20 days. I feel like it's probably been 20 days since something for me, and I've barely done anything. I have not even beaten a video game in 20 days. So that's what I'm doing during quarantine.
It was certainly a deep dive, if I could speak to that. I think it was such a deep dive. Well, that's part of the reason why it was so difficult to leave, because you live it and breathe it every single day, every waking moment. I only had contact with 3 family members, and period, the whole time I was there, as you guys know. So it's to shoot something like this in 20 days, it's kind of unheard of. I mean, I've done indies in very little time, but not like this.
Yeah, that's understandable. I mean, and one other thing that I haven't really talked about much, that I liked a lot, was the cinematography. I feel like that is almost a character in the film. Like, it is very, I mean, there's a lot of shots of sunsets, which sort of just kind of helps drive home a lot of the points that you're trying to make in the film. Is like, this person's career is sort of ending kind of against his will, but time marches on, and that career obviously like had an impact on his body that he can't control. So, and can you guys talk a little bit about that? Like, what was your sort of strategy, I guess is the right word. I'm blanking on what the right word is.
No, it's great. It's something that Adolfo Veloso is our cinematographer, and he's shooting in London right now, so he couldn't join us today. But he's incredible. Everyone will know his name, I'm sure, very soon. Yeah, the visual language. It was really hard to think about like how to tell the story, because it walks a line between Greg and I wrote a very specific script and a very specific story, and you want to get that across and get a narrative across, but also you want to be open to the possibility of it having documentary moments and being real life. And so it's hard to like translate that into visual language where it doesn't feel like one or the other, or feel like some weird Frankenstein. And Adolfo was amazing at that, of being able to, he operates the camera himself. And we used almost all just natural light. And we kind of all got into a rhythm on set where we would shoot very early in the morning in the magic hour. And then we would kind of wait until the sun got good again to shoot in the evening. And we would all, we'd bring all the actors together. We'd block out a scene, especially the exteriors. And once we got a good handle on it and what we want to do and how we want to shoot it, then we would just sit and wait, and we would just all watch Adolfo. And eventually Adolfo would say 10 minutes. And then we'd all kind of get into place and get going and get ready. And it was really scary at first, but it became like a really pleasant rhythm, I think.
I want to meet Adolfo. Yeah. He sounds like a maestro.
Yeah, Adolfo can be incredibly exacting, and that can be very stressful on producers trying to schedule things, but also just so intuitive and becomes just like this. There's this sort of childlike joy when the light is perfect, where he could be extremely frustrated about something, and then the light turns perfect, and then he like throws the camera over his shoulder, grabs with his other hand, he's like diving into the scene with Clint. And the other thing I'd say about their visual language that was really impressive to me was just like finding the space for the moments for the movie to breathe. Sometimes that was just be like portraiture of Clifton, smoking a cigarette, and what me as a director, I'm always sort of like kind of moving the plot forward, but Clint and Adolfo and Clifton kind of finding that space. It gave so much soul to the experience of the movie, to like check in with this character journey. And one thing Clint and I always talked about coming into the film is like Clifton in his face will be this prism to see the whole world of horse racing through. And as much as that can kind of fill the frame, it will bring us inside of this world, and through those eyes is the way that we want to experience it.
Yeah, I think you make a great point about wanting to move things forward. I'm kind of glad I'm not a filmmaker, because I'm like very all business. I would be like, okay, like cut out all of the shots that aren't necessary. But like this movie would have lost so much if that had been the sort of approach. And I mean, I'm sure you did have to cut some stuff out, but like I don't feel like that contributed to any lack of momentum. My laundry is done. I don't know if you can hear that, but anyway, exciting.
Speaking of momentum,
yes. Yeah. But I really feel like it sort of contributes to like a temperature and a tempo of the movie that doesn't feel like that is indulgent, if that makes sense. Like it really feels like breathing, as you said, sort of inhaling and exhaling throughout.
Which is coincidentally, in my opinion, how Adolfo also shot. Like he in all the DPs I've had the privilege to work with, he never yelled. I heard him like moderately raise his voice just one time, and I'm grabbing at straws here, like, but literally, like he goes, "We've got 7 minutes to get this shot, or we do not shoot." Okay, guys. Okay, and then he would talk and talk. Okay, we missed this shot, we go on to the next shot, and if it's important, we pick up tomorrow. Beautiful. And there's something so creatively liberating and allows one to not take on the weight of the stressful things that are missing, or you think you're missing or want to get in on, and you can focus on what you're doing when you've got so many people that are in that kind of control. It's just so refreshing. And so I think filmmakers forget that. I just got off a big film that there was just, all it takes is one person to be snappy, and then it goes right down the ladder. It's infectious, it affects everybody. So the fact that there was so much calmness in the chaos, because they go together hand in hand, and it's that right balance that allows one to pull off, in my opinion, this kind of work, being someone who's worked on big budget and little budget. And I gotta say, that was really so nice.
Yeah,
So nice.
especially when you have a small crew. I mean, it if one person has a bad attitude, it spreads fast. So I'm glad to hear that wasn't an issue. I'm curious if everything had gone wrong and you could only get one part of this film right, what would that have been?
Can we all go around and say our answer?
Yeah, this is for everybody.
Nancy, what do you think?
Not me first. I was just like, what am I going to say? You go first.
Greg, do you have one? Or Cliffy?
I would say, we talk about, like, whenever we're putting a movie together, and it kind of happens a number of times, we're like, this is the moment in the script that it all revolves around. And sometimes you get so fixated on that, and most of the time, by the time we've shot the film, it's not that important anymore. But in the edit, and this was something that wasn't in the script originally, but once we shot it, we felt the magic of it. And then the edit, we were like, okay, this is sort of the standard bearer for everything else. We need the rest of the cut to live up to this moment. And it's a two-hander. It's the party around the bonfire, where after they've won on Dido, and they're all like a family, and there's all this possibility. And then it's the fall in the trailer, where Clifton and Molly have this sort of amazing, beautiful connection. It's such a simple moment. I mean, it's literally just a camera sitting between two people, incredibly vulnerable, incredibly painful, but there's this love there. And it's really just, I think it's kind of a perfect scene. And in terms of performance and direction and the camera work, that, I don't know, we're going to have to figure out how to top it in our next movie.
That's a tough one. I don't discourage you. I'm on your team, but
yeah.
That's kind of
timing that here with the shadows and Adolfo. I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm just having a flashback of exactly how we pulled that off, and there was a lot of magic every day, Kiwi. A lot of literally cinema magic.
That trailer scene, I think I had to go back and watch it again because of like just how quickly the mood changes, and because I was like, wait, did I what? Like, and then I was like, oh wow, oh my gosh. And like, that sort of brutal moment of this person who like has been trying really hard to hide himself out of trying to protect his ambition, having to show this person who he clearly cares a lot about and who cares a lot about him, this sort of ugly thing that he's been trying to will away, for lack of a better word. And I think we've all probably had a moment similar to that in our lives, of having to sort of confront a truth about ourselves that we haven't exactly wanted to share someone that we care about. And so that scene was just like one of the big ones for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love this. There's a scene that's really special to me. That's when they're sitting by the lake, when Moises and Jackson are sitting by the lake, and it's one of those early on in the edit. You were talking about, Kiwi, like this ability for the movie to breathe, and all of that, and that's something that, like, that was very hard to get to because the first cut of the movie was just, I was so depressed. And and it took a while to tune it up. But like that was a scene that like we got early on, and it's one that's just like it feels very special to me because like they're out there fishing. There's this beautiful moment. Like there's so much that shouldn't work about it, but does come across beautifully. You've got Clifton giving a monologue with his eyes closed, which is something that I think we might take for granted how difficult that is to get emotion across that way. And then just what this a murmuration of birds showed up for us in that moment when we were trying to figure out how to, we needed time to pass in the scene and we didn't know how. And then as we were setting up, this the starling murmuration comes through and the birds show up and Adolfo just started shooting it and then we had it. And so there's a lot about that scene that's really feels special to me.
Yeah.
Nancy, what did you think?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nancy.
Well, I was just going to sort of chime in and say, I mean, there's so much that we wanted to get right. And the scenes that both Clint and Greg have mentioned, I mean, as a producer and as like, I'm always the sky is falling and I have to protect the sky from falling on the scene and all this stuff. And that's where my mind always is. So I'm always, every time I saw all those good scenes happen, it was another thing for me to say like, oh, this is actually working. This is working. And every time when you're shooting, you get into this rhythm of thinking everything's going to go wrong. And then when it goes right and you see those performances and they're so strong, that just is the whole redemption. That's the whole reason we're out there. And just to add into the scenes of that as a general tone, we had to pull off making it look like those horses were racing and our guys were racing on those horses. And that's hard. I mean, it's hard. And Clint and Adolfo and Greg and they all and Clifton made that work in a way that we didn't know, I think, going in how hard that was going to be and how we were going to make it work. And we did it because everyone was really good at their jobs.
Absolutely.
Nice. Yeah, that's something that would not have occurred to me because it looked seamless. So
yeah.
Now that I know that, I'm gonna go and watch it again and be like, ha.
You won't be able to figure it out, Q A.
Yeah.
You'll think they're on those horses.
Yes. Seamless.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to give it away then, because I got the note now. I don't. There's so many. We took that deep dive, so it's hard to. So many of the scenes needed to be authentic and organic and real, and all the effort that goes into that. Anytime you pull it off, it's a get. Anytime you pull it off, it's like, oh, I love this. So there's so many of those scenes, but just speaking to stuff that would just happen randomly, or one could argue randomly. I just love the whole day, because the day that I met with my ex-girlfriend from 20 years ago was also the same day that the Wild Mustangs came to visit me, and for me personally, that spoke to me as both as Clifton and as Jackson, because it just happened. And we didn't have a horse wrangler. We didn't have, those were wild, unbroken Mustangs. And it was the end of the day and the sun was going down and the cars were like 2 miles away. And I'm in cowboy boots walking on rocks. And I told everybody I was leaving. Say, hey, I'm going back to the car. Sun's going down. I remember Nancy was trying to chase down the Mustangs, if I'm not mistaken. You can't really chase down wild Mustangs, but she tried, and we got a shot off that would suffice. But the magic that happened when I locked eyes with that dominant mare while I was squatting down, I was just walking and I started throwing rocks, and I just heard this stomping in the water, and I looked up, and it was this big, beautiful, dominant mare with her nostrils flared, looking right into my eyes, and I was looking into hers. It was really it was probably by far, I think, the most magical moment of the year for me personally. Yeah, it was no words.
Awesome. We haven't talked much about, I'm pivoting a little bit here. Pivot is a word I never want to hear again after 2020, and yet I'm using it. but we haven't talked much about the other actors who are acting with you. So, and like when I was sort of doing some research ahead of this, I was like, oh my God, there's really only like the three of you primarily. I mean, you know, there's sort of the one scene with your ex-girlfriend, but you know, how did they, anyone can answer this, how did they sort of get involved, and was there like, you know, did you guys have to do any sort of prep to establish that intimacy? Because it really did come across pretty well. So I wasn't sure if you knew them already or how that happened.
This is for Clifton, huh?
Anyone?
Clint does.
Yeah, we didn't know Molly or Moises. We'd been big fans of them for a long time, and hoped they would do it. But you know, once the role of Ruth is such a difficult role to get right, and it could so easily go, you know, one way or the other, and go into either too hard or too cheesy or something like that. And it's a really, like, outside of the role itself, it's also, being a trainer is a really difficult thing to get right, because you're kind of middle management to a certain extent. You've got the talent as the jockey that you're managing, and you've got the owners to answer to. And Molly was just someone who we had been fans of hers for a long time, and wrote the role hoping she would do it. And we cold called her team and reached out, and luckily she took a shine to the role, and just, she was so incredible. She did so much research leading up to the movie. She shadowed a trainer. She bought her own wardrobe at thrift stores based on what her character would wear. And then when she showed up, it was just, she was a breath of fresh air. Exactly how she is in the movie, she was that way on set, where none of us wanted Molly to leave at the end.
Yeah, she seems.
I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Molly reminded me that we were both judges in the Independent Spirit Awards.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you knew that. She reminded me when we were hanging out one night. And so she got into a little bit about Jockey coming to her. And then Moises, I worked with when he was 13 years old on this true story called The Perfect Game, which is the first perfect game played by these little leaguers. And Moises was one of my players. So it was, he doesn't remember a lot of the stories that I had, but I brought a bunch of video that I had saved and photos that I had to dig up from old hard drives, you know, so just to show him, it was a way for me to reconnect with him, because although I still speak to quite a few of those kids, I ran into Moises a few times just in the scene, but I didn't speak to him as regularly as some of the other kids. They're all young men now, but so that was kind of nice. It was nice to reconnect with him.
Yeah. That's all.
And
I just, like, someone was like, hey, I have a whole hard drive of like stuff you did when you were an awkward 13-year-old. I'd be like, please, no. I don't.
And he doesn't remember it. But he laughed his ass off when I showed it. You don't remember this? He was like, no. He's like redoing like Ozzy Osbourne Night Train, like kicking his leg up in the air and yelling and screaming, like hilarious.
We had been actually planning to cast a young jockey in the part of Gabriel. That was the game plan all along. And in the kind of back of our heads, we were like, we knew there was some really intimate character dynamics that were going to be at play. And that's the thing you were juggling, is like the naturalism that you could get from a jockey who had the know-how, but then there's also like the kind of the immense interior work that's comes with the craft of the profession. And Moises was the only actor that we were going to consider. If he said no, we had plans to move forward with a jockey. And when he took a liking to it, and then we found out the history that Clifton and him had, and it just kind of carried over, and their relationship evolved even deeper as we made the film.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems the relationship between all three characters, like, you know, among each other, seemed very organic. So I'm actually kind of surprised that like, you know, y'all just cold called Molly's team, because it seemed like they had been friends. You know, she and Clifton had been friends for a long time. So
We only had Molly for a week, but we were kind of ruining the day. Once she got there, we're like, oh my, we need more. We want more scenes with her. We kept trying to. We wrote new stuff, and that party scene with the bonfire, Molly actually, that came from her experiences being with trainers, and brought a lot of her personal life. But that monologue is essentially her own words. It's really extraordinary.
Is there anything I haven't asked that you guys want to talk about? Anything you want to plug? Any hot gossip to share?
Hot gossip. Well, we're talking to you all, if you're watching this, from the past.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the hot gossip. Hopefully there's not too much hot gossip in 2021. We can all just relax a little bit.
Hopefully.
Let's at least hope that the gossip is fun and not scary.
Positive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kiwi. This was great, and thank you all for watching. We're so excited to share the movie with you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me. This is a really big deal, so I feel weird asking this, but do you have any upcoming projects that you would like to plug?
Oh, well, I mean, the only thing I'll say, I mean, Clifton, I just shot a really cool movie, but the four of us have now made 2 movies together, and there's something really special when we all come together that I hope we're doing it for years and years to come.
Work for the Beatles. Me too. I was thinking that yesterday. I literally was thinking that last night before I went to sleep. I hope that we get to make many, many more together. It's just that magic is so rewarding and satisfying because there's no money. So all you have is a creative fulfillment, and creative fulfillment is something that whether it's $100 million film or you're generally not going to get it in the big films. You're going to get it in the smaller films usually, because that creative, I couldn't have done it without any single one of those people are out of the equation. It becomes a different movie. And as an actor, you lean on everybody, and it's man, I love my team.
Yeah, I feel like that difference really does shine through. Like, you can tell sort of when people are doing something because it's fun, or like because it fulfills their passion. I mean, even though I would not classify this film as fun, but like you can tell that it is a passion project. So I think that definitely showed through, I guess, through what you all were doing. But thank you so much for joining me, and thank you to all of you who are now watching us in the future for coming to see the film and supporting Sidewalk.